order. Please be aware for anyone attending that this meeting is being recorded for future viewing. We are privileged to gather on the traditional territory of the Kwakwaka'wakw people. So with that in mind, we do have an agenda in front of us, and I'd be looking for any to accept or amend this agenda.
Move to accept.
Thank you. A second by Councillor Barron. All those in favor? Carried. On to new business. We have in front of us a report prepared by our CAO regarding scheduled meetings. And if Peter, may I give this to you and you can bring this forward. He's looking for a recommendation from council on two issues, and that's around our committee of the whole scheduled meetings and also around a meeting to be scheduled regarding the OCT with McElhaney and the public. So go ahead.
Thank you, Chairman Downey. So I think probably the first one to tackle would be the committee of the whole meetings, whether council wishes to continue to have regularly scheduled committee of the whole meetings. I do know that we still have several items on our horizon that will need, I think, some more fulsome discussion than just at a council meeting. One of the biggest ones being some sort of strategic priorities for your last year in your position of this particular council. So it would be great to have a committee of the whole meeting to address that. As per our resolution, our last scheduled one will be in August. So this is the one that we're having today is the second to last scheduled one. So I would just like to see if council would like to continue to have them on the first Tuesday of every month moving forward, or if you wanted to do another short time limit and then readdress it from there.
I have a question for you, Pete, and that would be to have this as a regularly scheduled part of our calendar. Do we have to revisit our bylaw for meetings?
No, we could just do this by resolution, which holds the same weight, and it's not going unless we want it to be a permanent function of the community, in which case then we would revise our procedure bylaw to reflect that. But if this is just a temporary measure, oh, 1 second, Councillor Mitchell has arrived.
Perfect. If it's okay, Mayor Wickstrom will just wait till Councillor Mitchell arrives. Councillor Mitchell, just to bring you up to speed, we're talking right now about the committee of the whole meetings that we have by resolution determined to have these up to the end of August. And the discussion now is, do we continue these to the end of the year, or what is the will of council? So Mayor Wickstrom, go ahead. You had a question?
Yeah, I really like knowing that we have a committee of the whole meeting scheduled. I don't have to, I build my schedule around it. And for me, it's great than trying to figure out what works best for the group. So I'd like to see it continue, and I'd love to see it be in our procedure bylaw. I think there's still a lot of things that we need to address: strategic priorities, policy updates, all kinds of things. I would imagine they don't all have to be long, but I would imagine that we're always going to find something that will fill it. And if need be, we just cancel.
Thank you. Any others? Comments?
I guess
Go
I would
ahead,
just
Councillor Cole.
Yeah, I guess I tend to agree with Mayor Wickstrom. I don't know that we got to put it in the procedure bylaw now, maybe, but by the end of the term, if we think that's what it takes for good governance, then maybe we should, and then that way people considering running for council will know that's, you know, an extra commitment that they should be prepared for, other than just 2 meetings a month. Because going into this, it looked like 2 meetings a month, but it's way more meetings once you're in the thick of it. And then I just wondered on, you know, I mentioned it before, if we had real light council meetings and it looks like there's not a lot on the agenda, is there a way to just casually have, you know, fit, you know, we all have 3 hours set aside on those Tuesday evenings. You know, is it possible to have an impromptu committee of the whole? I don't know, to make better use of that time.
Good
That's my
question.
input.
Good question. Councillor Mitchell?
Yeah, I guess I'd like to see a full schedules at our council meetings so that we don't have to have extra ones. You know, coming for a 1 hour meeting sort of gobbles up an evening, whether it's 1 or 3, right? And I don't mind going along on a council meeting as long as we have a planned agenda that we can do, you know, that we can execute, and then not have extra meetings tossed in there. Because if we schedule a committee of the whole, then I think that we'll just find that we're scheduling another meeting for those things that never ended up on the other 2. And so I think we really need to be strategic about our planning. If we're going to have an extra meeting, it needs to be effective, not just so we can have another meeting.
Thank you. CAO Pete?
Thank you, Councillor Downey. Just to Councillor Mitchell's comments and Councillor Cole's comments, in other communities I've looked at, they do hold a committee of the whole meeting on the council evening, typically an hour before, and they've purposely set it up that way to discuss, have the big fulsome, as Councillor Barron says, pie in the sky discussion prior to making the decision at the actual council meeting. So they use, you know, that time before the council meeting to have that big fulsome discussion about items that are actually on the council meeting. So what Councillor Mitchell and Councillor Cole are suggesting is something that other communities do. I don't know if it's typical, but some of the ones I've looked at, it's how they've set themselves up. So the thought process is done in the same evening as the decision making, and it really is up to council's will whether you want to have that thought process and a few days to you know, reconsider, or whether you want to do that all in the same evening.
Thank you. Councillor Barron, did you have anything you wanted to add?
Yes, I like the idea of having it scheduled just because with a busy schedule, at least I know that it's then or it's not. I was actually going to make a motion that we schedule them for the first Tuesday of the month for the next 6 months after August. And then we can look at procedural bylaws and the rest of it at that point.
Second her motion.
Okay, thank you.
I just had to count what 6 months was on my fingers. So that would be February, I think.
Which is probably a perfect time, because by then we will be dealing with budget through this next 6 month period here, and it's quite likely we will be needing those meetings as well. So we have a motion on the floor, and so I'd entertain any comments or discussion to the motion.
And I think with having a deputy in there now, and you know, by then by the end of summer, I'm hopeful we'll be fully staffed. I don't think it's going to be that hard to come up with the topics so that it's a good use of time.
Go ahead, Councillor Mitchell.
Was this for a committee of the whole meeting?
Yes.
Perhaps we want to make the motion reflect that.
So the motion as it reads now is to recommend the town schedule committee of the whole meetings for the first Tuesday each month at 9 a.m. for the next 6 months. Could we maybe clarify the 6 month and put until February 2022, just for clarity?
Can I make a comment?
Go ahead.
I'd like us to consider not calling them cow meetings. I noticed other communities say COTW.
That's just an acronym, and we absolutely,
Just-
that's people's choices.
Yeah, I mean, cow does have some negative connotations. I know in the healthcare setting, we had something that was referred to as a cow and we changed it. And I just noticed that other communities have gone the way of saying COTW for short. Then people might actually look it up. What the hell is a COTW?
So Pete, perhaps after where you have committee of the whole in brackets, you could just put COTW, and we'll start making that link today. Okay. Is there any other discussion on the motion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Motion is carried.
May I make a comment outside, like now that we're through that motion, just about Councillor Cole's recommendation? I think it is a great idea if we know we have a meeting that's only going to be a half an hour long. I think it is a great idea to perhaps hold a committee of the whole meeting afterwards. I am cognizant of the fact, though, that people like Anne Marie and I'm sure others, but have to get up fairly early. And I know that we seem to do our best work during the day. And so if it's a very heavy subject that we're tackling, I'm just cognizant of that for an evening meeting. Otherwise, I think it's a great idea. We've already set the time aside, and why not use that time if it's available?
Thank you.
Could we not just simply, at the end of our council meeting, we would vote on whether we want to do the cow? Maybe we're all like worn out. We want to go home at 9.
Yeah, but we would have to determine the week before so that you have the information for the committee of the whole, right? Like we can't really have a committee of the whole by the seat of our pants without some background.
Agenda, sure, but whatever's on the agenda could just be rolled over. So say we get through one item on it and then the other items just get rolled over, or we say, no, there's no appetite for this, to tackle this tonight, and it just falls over to the next Tuesday or the next after council meeting.
I think there's a place for to determine whether the procedures and bylaws, what's permitted and permissible, and bring this back for further discussion. The other item here that we have to talk about this morning is the official community plan. So Kevin Brooks is proposing that council meets with him on July 21st to review the official community plan and zoning bylaw draft. So what does everybody's calendar look like? Can we do that?
I noticed we had something on the 22nd, or that's for the public. Is that what that? My copy's pretty dark. I can't. Yeah, no. The APC and focus groups, OPC and zoning. So I guess we're not involved in that. That's like going.
I think Kevin said
Kevin's going to go to the APC that day.
Yeah.
he said he was going to book us back to back with the other ones so that it wasn't 2 trips up. So I assumed that was all that was on there for, just to let us know when it was happening.
Yeah, and I guess they normally meet Thursdays. I have a meeting on Wednesday. I think it's from 10 to 11, but I don't imagine it'll be an all-day thing. Do we know?
Do we know?
That particular week isn't a good one for me at all. for a couple of reasons. First of all, I'm still waiting for the information I asked for at the last meeting so that I could do a proper analysis of the new bylaw. And do I have to make a formal written request, or how do I get that information?
No, my apologies. I did get it late last week, but with missing one employee and it being the end of tax season, I was just bottlenecked with customers. So I do have the information. I will get that out to you today.
And a power outage to boot.
And a power outage to boot, and a
And
holiday.
another one coming up on the 15th for a whole day, right? So it sort of puts us behind the 8 ball. So I'm not really ready to because I believe we have to spend some time going through this, and it's really tough to go through it, not knowing what the changes are. And I've been able to delineate some of those changes, and they're scary. So I would like to go through every line of that and see what's different from what we currently have. And I don't want to discuss it now because I don't have enough information to discuss it now.
But just a reminder, we're talking about a date that is 2 weeks out, 15 days ahead of us. So
Yeah,
go
and
ahead,
I got
Councillor
vacation scheduled
Barron.
in there. That's my problem. I won't be here for the whole time.
Thank you. Go ahead, Councillor Barron.
Counselor Mitchell, we haven't done this before, and we certainly haven't done this before with Kevin Brooks, but he was trying to, I thought he was trying to make it clear at the last meeting that this first meeting with us was going to answer some of those, that getting too thick into the weeds of it, you might actually be, and correct me if I'm wrong, people, but you might actually be getting yourself down into weeds that you don't need to go into, because once he explains it to us and walks us through it, then you'll probably get directed a bit more into what you want to put some energy into. I mean, some of the things that sounded like were strictly like regulation, and that's what I'm kind of envisioning. It's going to be kind of like, this is what you had, this is best practice, this is what the rules say, and going forward. I mean, he was really trying to tell us that the first meeting was going to get us to funnel in a little bit more. So I don't think you need to get too thick into it before this first meeting.
I just confirmed that
Well, I
was
think
my understanding as well. So, sorry.
So basically, we wait for the proponent to give it to us, but it seems to me we had a time schedule of getting this whole thing passed by September. Am I right? The OCP? The end date was set in September. Am I correct?
That was the original plan, yeah.
Okay, is that still the plan?
It will be dependent on the availability of meetings, setting up our public consultation process. It is right now, everything is in line to meet that date. And it'll also depend on the severity of any changes that council deems necessary.
Well, I guess I feel like we're really not part of this process, because we're given the deadline of September, which is a little bit fluid, I understand, but I feel pressure that that's the deadline that's been set. We don't get to really get into the guts of it until the 22nd of August of July, in the middle of summer vacation period. So we got July and August, so 6 weeks after we get the actual information from the proponent, from Kevin Brooks, and then we have to be ready to say, yeah, we're in favor of this, without any real public consultation on all these changes. There's huge changes going on that I've seen already. This needs to be brought to the public. There needs to be public meetings, and we're just driving this process hard. We drove it hard through the pandemic without adequate public consultation, and now we're driving it through council. I don't like that. I want to see this stuff, and I want to read through it. I don't need somebody to spoon feed me. I can read, and I know that when that bylaw is passed, anything Kevin Brooks to say will mean nothing. It's going to be what's written, ink on paper. That's what I need to understand. So I need to read that now, not in 2 weeks. That's what I feel. I asked for that 2 weeks ago, and I still don't have it. So it's a little bit
The
frustrating.
CAO said you'd have that today.
I understand, but I asked for it a couple of weeks ago when it was brought, when Kevin came to us, he didn't bring that with him. Well, I don't understand why, because I'm asked, I'm gonna be told later on that you've had this stuff since whenever, 3 weeks ago. And yeah, I've had it, but it was not in manageable format that I could actually compare it to the old bylaw. And now when I say that's what I want to do, I say, oh, don't worry about that. He'll explain it all to you and then you'll have your questions. That's my decision to make. And I'd like to have that opportunity. Thank you.
Okay, so I would just remind council, the current OCP that we have was drafted in 1997. And the data and everything that's in there was compiled ahead of that. It was released in 1997. So we're talking about a document that is almost 25 years old. If we want to do comparisons on the document that Kevin Brooks and McElhaney is bringing forward to us, comparing it against a document that is 25 years old is probably not advantageous. Comparing it perhaps to other small communities such as ours might be more beneficial, but each one of us will do our own due diligence, and we will do what we feel compelled to do to determine whether what's presented in front of us is a worthy document. And I appreciate that, and that's a personal choice. However, I will say that July 21st is the date they have asked to meet with us and present it. If we push that date out further, then we actually push out the completion of our OCP further. We push out further the opportunity to bring it before the public. So I would suggest that we need to meet with them sooner than later so that we can comprehend what has been brought forward and being presented in this document, so that we can in turn relay that information to the public as we go forward and begin the consultation. And anything that is, might give us cause for concern can be addressed or asked. The questions could be asked at that time. So I would like to see us proceed with this date of the 21st of July, just so we can get this ball rolling. It feels like we've had it stuck for a while in terms of, what council knows and in terms of what we've given to the public. The only groups who are aware of this stuff is that what we've seen, the focus groups and perhaps the advisory planning. So that is my recommendation, is that we go forward with the July 21st date. Councillor Cole?
Second it.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
I'm a little concerned that the APC and focus groups are going to get the draft that we were just presented without us going through it first. To me, we should answer the big picture questions that have been posed to us. And what's the point of having the APC stress about whether we're having chickens or not when all of council says no chickens? So it's a little bit the cart before the horse, I see. And to be fair, if Ryan's got a holiday planned, I mean, this was not, he's not missing a regularly scheduled Tuesday meeting. It's been relatively short notice and people book their holidays ahead of time. Was there a problem with the 27th? I forget why we canceled our 4th meeting. And again, I just wanted people to think about, these are back to back. So on the 21st, he's going to get all our information. As far as I'm concerned, then he should go back and redo a draft, and then it gets presented to the public. But unless he's planning on staying up all night Wednesday, and that's not going to happen. The APC and the focus groups are going to get this document, and it's going to be public. And if council has no intentions, or we're planning on banning vehicles on the street or something, then these big picture stuff should really be addressed ahead of time. If the focus group comes back and everyone in town is disagreeing with us, then fine, but we've been elected for a reason to make these hard decisions. So I'm concerned about the back-to-back, and then also, I'm not seeing what the huge rush is. We've had the huge, the COVID delay, so to push it back 1 week, if Councillor Mitchell's available that week. But yeah, my main point, other than scheduling, is just the fact that this draft is going out without us even having any input.
Good point.
26th and 27th is also available.
Okay. Mayor Wickstrom?
Yeah, I just, I agree to a degree with Councillor Cole about, it going to the different focus groups, but I'm cognizant always also of the fact that whether we agree or disagree with how all of the data was gathered, we had hundreds of people give our input. So as a council, we need to keep that in mind if we stray too far from one direction, if that's what we heard from the public, the direction that they wanted to go. And I'm under the understanding that McElhaney did take that input into consideration when drafting this this first iteration that we see.
Yeah, I would just like to add that there was a lot of questions that were not asked in the survey, that assumptions are made in the OCP. So chickens, for one example, we didn't ask that. We didn't ask if are you in favor of 10-foot tall fences? We didn't ask, are you in favor of getting rid of, in a roundabout way, industrial and downtown? So there's like quite a few things in here that were not addressed in our survey. And then I think there's things that were in the survey that aren't reflected here as well. So.
And I think,
Go ahead.
if I may say, as you are probably already aware, I have a problem with the entire process because it was pushed through without enough public discussion because of the pandemic. We weren't able, I was at the very first meetings where we weren't able to, it was 8 people in a room sitting at a table by themselves, listening to a presentation. That hardly constitutes a public meeting. It might meet the letter of some law, but it certainly didn't. It wasn't a meeting where people could voice their concerns and talk about their thoughts and share things. It wasn't that kind of a meeting. We need those kind of meetings. This is a document that is going to live, as you pointed out, Councillor Downey, for the next 25 years probably, or maybe 15 years, depending on what the next councils do. So we need to get this as right as we know how to get it right. And what I asked for wasn't a detailed comparison of the OCPs from 25 years ago and today. I asked for the bylaw changes. That's all I asked for. I didn't anticipate getting the OCP comparisons because as you pointed out, I think things change so significantly that the OCP is a fresh document each time it's created. And I accept that. But the bylaw is not a fresh document, or it shouldn't be. We should be able to know what the changes are, every one of them, and discuss them. And I think we have to go through that bylaw line by line. I don't think we trust a community planner who doesn't live here, who has no investment in our community, to choose what we have for bylaws. We need to choose those bylaws, and we need to choose them wisely because the people are counting on us to do that, not just say, oh yeah, well, we had a professional do this, so we don't have to worry too much about it. You can do all that thinking about that in like 2 days. I can't do that. I want to see that stuff. I wanted to see it 2 weeks ago when he came. I wanted to see it now, and I want to see it, have some time to ruminate on that and talk to people about it and see what they're thinking.
So we have two sort of messages here that are going on. One is should the focus group APC be viewing a document back to back from council? Should there be separation of time to consider any perspective or changes that council may be asked for? That's one discussion that's kind of circulating right now. And then the discussion is when do we meet with McElhaney? Do we need to push it out to the 26th? The other option is, do we move it forward? Do we have this initial discussion and let's do it sooner if Councillor Mitchell's schedule doesn't work? Because it seems to me until we have him walk us through what he's prepared and the language behind it and the reasoning, we're kind of at a standstill.
I don't object to meeting this week. Wouldn't matter to me.
Okay. Councillor Barron?
I was gonna say, can the CAO go back to Kevin Brooks then and get us a date that's sooner? Like we need a date, and it would be preferable to have him and us all in the room. But instead of this format, now that everything's relaxing, even if we have to use a community hall and sit at northeast, west, and south, maybe it's worth the extra travel money to get him to come up to do the groups and us separately.
Thank you. Through the chair. That's absolutely something I can do. I know that we're not the only community that Kevin's working with, so I'm not sure what his schedule is looking like for the next 2 weeks. He did indicate 21st, 22nd was available to him, and 26th and 27th. I can ask if he can bump that up. His intention was to come up and meet in person so that we can all be looking at the same thing at the same time, and going through line by line the high level changes that were made.
So are we looking at 2 scenarios then? Either asking him to come up sooner and leaving the 22nd date as it is, or do we look at holding our 21st date and pushing the APC focus group out to the following week?
If I can, I'm just going to I would like to be part of the process, but on 14th, 15th, and 16th, I'm going to be at UBCM meetings in Vancouver. So just letting council know that.
And we have no power on the 15th, so
Right.
takes that out of the equation anyways. So
I wonder about the 13th. Could we try to fit something in on our council meeting if we have a light agenda? I guess that question's directed to Pete.
My understanding of this process is it's not 1 or 2 hours. This is going to be a full day. So council needs to be, prepared to come and go through OCP and zoning, much like what is being discussed in its entirety, and very in depth. With lots of discussion. So I don't know that Tuesday before the meeting will provide enough time.
If I could, I'd like to suggest that's a lot for one day. I'd rather see it split into 2 sessions, one on the OCP and one on the bylaws. Because I mean, one whole day is a lot for all that.
go ahead, Councillor Barron.
I was just gonna say, is everybody available on the 26th and the 27th? Can we just start there? And then that gives Pete something to go back to Kevin. If those dates are still available for Kevin, book the 2 days and then I guess sort it out from there. Whether we need a whole day for OCP and a whole day for bylaw with us, and get the APC scheduled after that.
I would be agreeable to that.
I'm available then.
I'm only available on the 26th or the morning of the 27th.
And I can fit that into my schedule.
Do you need a motion or a recommendation for that?
I would prefer one, just that it's a matter of record for us.
So I'd move then that our CAO goes back to McElhenney and proposes the 26th and the 27th with details on topic to be worked out once dates are set. And by that, I mean whether we do a half day of the OCP and a half day of the bylaw, however, let's just secure those dates. We all seem to be available for most of it.
Did I have a seconder for that? Councillor Barron? Yeah, Mitchell. I'm going to ask the question. That means, are we fine with the APC and focus groups meeting the day following us? Or the day of, whichever, 26, 27. Go ahead, Councillor Mitchell.
Is it my understanding that they operate at the direction of council? And so we would maybe want to come up with some direction to give them before they meet? If we're going to be reviewing the documents and saying, okay, this is our opinion or our thoughts on this, are we gonna be able to give them that direction at all, or are we just gonna let them take their direction from the from Kevin Brooks?
Just a
Because
moment.
then
on
it'd be,
that. My thought is that depending what comes out of the council's meeting with McElhaney, there would be a draft or a document detailing council's wishes or what we see as deficiencies or additions that are needed in the document, and that would just be handed to them to consider at the same time. I don't know that we want to tell them what to look at, because otherwise we're not getting an objective opinion if we're directing them as to how they should review the document. Go ahead, Councillor Barron.
I think it would just be respectful to give them the date for a placeholder and just let them know that depending how the meetings go, it may get postponed from then, or here's your placeholder. Again, we haven't been through this process. We don't know what this is going to be given to us to be given to them, and we have to put some trust somewhere here.
We have a motion on the floor. It's been passed and seconded. Is there any other discussion? Go ahead, Mayor Whitstone.
Just one other comment. I think, you know, let's just say, for example, we met on the 26th and then they met on the 27th. I can't see McElhaney not giving our concerns, things that we've noticed and flagged, and not mentioning that at the same time. So yeah, I don't see them sort of spoon feeding it as is. What would come out of that meeting, they would mention, I would think.
Thank you. Pete?
Just in commenting on the APC focus group meetings, and I just want to reflect what Councillor Barron said about putting trust in someone. So McElhaney Limited and Kevin Brooks have done this for a living, for careers, and we've hired them. We've put our trust in them. They have successful official community plans throughout the province. And in my opinion, as the administrator, if this is the method that they use that they find effective, I think we need to put our trust in him, that this is the method that, you know, meeting with council and the focus groups in the same week, if it's a proven method that works for this planning process, then I feel we need to put that trust in our consultants.
Thank you. Councillor Cole?
Maybe Pete could clarify. I believe that Thursday was picked because the APC meets on Thursdays. So by us saying all of a sudden a Tuesday, you know, I think they meet the third Thursday. So maybe we got to bump it till August. And then now I'm thinking maybe just if he could just do them on the 22nd and the chips fall where they are, and do us on the 26th. But yeah, maybe if he could just comment on if they have a regular date, if they've been meeting at a regular time. And if we pick a Tuesday, is that going to mess them up?
No, APC is being quite flexible on this. I've been working with the new chair, John Flintoft, and they're trying to get as many of their members into a meeting as possible, and are being flexible to adjust for that.
Is the 28th and is the 28th and 29th available? Because then that's still a Wednesday, Thursday.
I would need to ask Kevin. Like I say, I'm not sure his schedule.
I suppose maybe the question to council is that week, the 26th to the 29th, open for council? And then we can just be informed as to which date it would be.
Works for me.
Anyone else? Go ahead.
I didn't quite catch it. Did you say the 28th and 29th?
The question I posed is does council have the dates 26th to the 29th open? And then that gives some leeway to McElhaney and the CAO to determine meeting dates for us and the APC focus group.
I could commit to that.
I would really not prefer the 28th, but if everyone else, if that's the only date, then so be it.
we'll note it and hope,
Awesome.
hope that works. So, okay, if that is, I think we had a motion on the floor, and I think it was by Gabby, seconded by Anne Marie, and the motion was to change the date to the 26th, 27th. So we'll amend that motion to read the 26th to the 29th. And then
In favor of
unless there's further discussion, I'd call the question. You know, all those in favor. Okay, motion is carried. Okay. Next on the agenda is levels of service staffing implications. I'd like to say welcome to Connor Mork, our new Deputy Corporate Officer. I met him in the office this week. Young man, glad to have him on board. So, Pete, this is your report, and I would ask you to address us on this, please.
Thank you. This report was prompted by some discussion at our previous meeting about whether or not the town would like to carry forward status quo with the template that we've had, which has been a receptionist, a deputy corporate or an administrative assistant. And in this case, now we have a deputy corporate, CFO, a finance assistant, and a CAO. So that question was brought to light at the last meeting, and whether there's other levels of service that we could be bringing into the community. One of the ones that I've highlighted time and time again is that council, this particular council, really has a strong desire to open up our electronic communications. So through our media venues, either being our Facebook page, our Instagram, or our web pages, you know, the tourism one and the town one. Communication in itself is not, as we had a discussion yesterday, is not an off the side of the desk project if it's to be done properly. You know, we're also working on town log and expanding other services into the museum and information center. So I brought this forward to council to see if there's a desire to expand services even more. You know, I can see our public works manager, Julian Allen, is thread to thread, day to day. He is so busy. You know, do we need to consider getting him some sort of admin assistant to help him with the paperwork and the administrative side of what he's doing? Or do we look at putting him in the office more and getting someone underneath him to run the boots on the ground management aspect of public works and allow him to work on the project management and administration? There's so many sort of ideas up in the air of how we can pivot at this particular point. And obviously before we can make any solid choices, you know, once the council determines that level of service, we would need to look at budget to see if what could currently be absorbed, or if we would have to adjust the budget to absorb a greater budget for staffing.
Okay, thank you. Comments, thoughts? Councillor Barron?
I think that this is a snapshot in time document that we need to use for strategic priorities. And I think that we need to look at things from a risk point of view, and my spitball pie in the sky. I'd really like to, I've got a little document prepared, and if everybody would have the patience with me, I'd like to throw it out there. I'd like us all to kind of work on it for a week and then have a COPD TP I can't remember now what you said, Derek. Meeting like quickly here so that we could at least start to decide what we actually think some of those risks, I use the word risk, some of those risks are, and where we think that we can actually start plugging some of those. I mean, simultaneously here, we've been doing the work with Shelley Coleman. And, you know, there's some things came to light there within the job description that I think we need to look at and we need to consider. So can I throw that out there, that this is a moment in time. This is where Pete's currently saying things are at. This is what we need. You know, but the community needs and the community service levels, you know, maybe that's going to change once we actually sit down and go, these are the risks. This is where the problems are.
Sounds good. Comment, Mayor Wickstrom?
I like that strategy because where we think we might collectively like to plug holes might not be where the risks are. So I do like Councillor Barron's suggestion on that. I'm also conscious of the fact that I don't think how to phrase this. Where we're in a different time than we were in the past, and we always ran a very lean machine, but that doesn't necessarily serve us well moving forward. And trying to find that balance, you know, with a lot of municipalities, those wages are predominantly their budget, and it doesn't leave us very much wiggle room. So I'm not saying not to hire somebody because it costs us too much money, but just to be conscious of that budgetary wise, you know, pension and all that other thing that we have to pay into as well. And perhaps with social media, there are people who do contract work. You know, we probably don't have a full-time person. And so maybe it might be advantageous for us to look at having a contract position for, I don't know, 500, 1,000, whatever it is. We'd have to do the research per month to have somebody just managing the social media aspect. I know that the tourism is looking at that, so maybe we can share jointly or whatever. So yeah, those are just my thoughts, just trying to be conscious of the balance between budget and need and risk.
Any other thoughts? Go ahead, Councillor Cole.
Yeah, I tend to agree. I think a quick win would be, call it we will, some sort of communications or social media person. For sure, like I think the tourism needs it, but like it should be the same person. And I think they should spend time at the office too, so they know, you know, they will be projecting a message, and it needs to reflect, you know, Pete's leadership and council's leadership. So I wonder, this new secretary position, if all of a sudden we have a communications person and they're not working on the town log and all this stuff, that frees up time for our secretary. So could we try, you know, 1 day a week or a half a day, you know, helping Julian, that same secretarial position? And that might be a way to sort of test that waters and see if that's a good tact. And yeah, I feel the town needs way more capacity, but that to me is a little bit more of a budget issue. If we're just gonna go ahead and hire, you know, a whole nother position, but the short-term contract for communications or social media would be something we could do right away. That I think would help with the capacity issue of the town.
Okay, go ahead, Councillor Barron.
Just respectfully, that feels so vacuumy, you know. I mean, that feels so vacuumy. I think we really need to have a structured discussion about all of this. And there's lots of hashtags and pictures. And I mean, if we get through one more COVID summer without focusing on the tourism, but there might be something else that, you know, actually comes up that has some risk to it. We need to deal with that. And there's in camera and there's out of camera, and I agree with Pete, and I've been saying it for a few months now. I'm concerned about public works and our capital projects that are on the horizon, and to me, that's a risk that we need to look at, and we need to look at a little bit harder than getting somebody to do communication strategy. And I'm not saying that to diss anybody, but I'm just saying, I think that's why we need to have this big discussion and start putting stuff into columns and making some decisions about, as it said in here, triaging, but making some decisions about a logical step forward.
Thank you. Go ahead, Councillor Mitchell.
I'm just trying to figure out what risks are being referred to. I'm not sure what risks are happening or are developing that council isn't aware of or hasn't already dealt with. Help me out here. Well, I'm missing a big chunk of this picture.
I think we've got some financial risks, Councillor Mitchell, that we need to take a harder look at. I think on our original strategic, we had the campground, and I think the airport might have even hit there. I dare not to bring up the airport because it just gets us down a rabbit hole, but where does that rabbit hole fit? You know, that is a risk. Where is the risk of the campground? Where is the risk of that property? Where is not knowing our capital spend at the fire hall for the next 20 years? Like, where do all those things fit in, as opposed to, you know, I mean, I understand the receptionist before used to be 10 till 2. Well, can you find somebody that, or is that enough support for what we need? We've never had the amount of public works staff and projects, number of contractors on the go before. Who's going to manage that without, like, there's risk there. There's HR risk, there's payment financial risk, I think is the number one. And there's a safety risk. So how do we, like, where do those all sit in the big gamut?
I think I agree with Councillor Barron. I think that you're right. CO, we have gaps, and we've had them for some time. We have filled our deputy corporate officer, which is should help to move some of the administrative side of our operations forward. However, in the absence of filling the rest of these positions, or because of the absent bums in seats for these positions, it does provide the opportunity to revisit the whole organization and prioritize what's needed and what skill sets. And I think when we do it from a risk perspective is wise. And I don't think risk is the only thing we can manage for. I think we have to, as we see the results of our OCP and our zoning, I think that too will also shed some light on, you know, what kind of personnel we need to have on board in our town office. So I don't want to see staff strapped and not have the manpower they need, but at the same time to fill a position, just to fill a position with all of this stuff in the works, you know, can we manage through this? And you know, fill our receptionist, you know, 10 to 2 on a temp basis, and get us through the hump here, and see what comes forward with our OCP and these discussions that are going on right now with Shelley Coleman, I believe her name is, and take a position there. I'd like to review what Councillor Barron has prepared as well. So, Mayor Wickstrom.
I see the strategic planning session as a platform really for laying all this out, laying out, you know, what our priorities are and systematically going through them. I do see us though having extra meetings. I mean, we're trying to systematically go through past practices, you know, updating policies, and that's going to take some extra meetings, but there seems to be a reticence for more than just the Thursday, Friday, and first Tuesday. And I mean, this is a council that is moving and shaking and really doing things, and we want to do them well, and that's going to require some extra meetings and some conversations. And I don't see a way around it if we have goals before the end of our term.
Go ahead, Councillor Cole.
May I ask Pete, is the secretary 10 to 2? Has that been the case, or?
No,
I didn't realize that part-time position.
receptionist is been full-time 35 hours a week since I've started here.
So there's no, the 10 to 2 thing is not, I don't know where that came from. I thought, yeah.
It was
nobody's
in,
work. Go ahead.
yeah, sorry, it was in earlier years. I think prior to Laura Evans, when she started as receptionist, I do believe the position was a 10 to 2 position.
And you've advertised for a full-time position.
Correct.
Correct. Okay. Yeah, I was gonna say if it was 10 to 2, then that'd be a no-brainer to me. Just go full-time and you'd have a little more help, but sounds like it was full-time already. So thank
So
you.
what is the will of council? We have staff is looking for some direction regarding staffing requirements and budgetary implications. Go ahead.
I say we wait till we have our strategic planning session and then have an in-depth discussion based on also Councillor Barron's concerns about risk. And that way we'll have a better idea as to where we want to expand or layer into the current positions we already have.
Go ahead, Councillor Barron.
And just out of curiosity, if the CEO feels that the staffing is getting so far behind and there is someone available that could come in and help out with the backlog on the on a temporary basis, he has the ability to do that and has our full support to go ahead and do that. Am I correct? That's his role to do that. So if there is somebody who's got their fingers in the pie enough that could, like I heard you say Ashley Cody had come back to help out with tax season. While it probably is going to take us the month at least to get this through, if not the middle of August, you have the ability to try and do a bit of that catch up, and you're confident that you can go ahead and do that. Am I correct?
Correct. I have reached out to Ashley Cody. She wasn't available. I've also reached out to someone, I'm not going to mention their names, it's a public meeting, but I have reached out to some other prior employees to see if they're interested in doing some temporary work to help us catch up.
So in light of that, then I would entertain a motion just to receive our CAO's report, just to receive it at this time as information. Councillor Barron, Councillor Wickstrom. Okay. All those in favor?
Could I add one more point, Chair?
Go ahead.
When we're looking at this OCP, when I read through it, there's a lot of, we're going to have a parks master plan. We're going to have, infrastructure. Like there's a lot of plans and extra capacity that I saw in there. I'm like, well, where is this going to come from? So let's keep that, and that rolls into our strategic plan. So I just wanted to make that point. Thank you.
Good point. Good point. Okay, there is nothing else on our agenda for this morning. So one thing to maybe we could discuss, because this is a committee of the whole, is COTW. We are now eligible to go back to in-person meetings. So we have a meeting scheduled for the 13th of July, and I'd like to know what the will of council is on that. Mayor Wickstrom?
That's okay. Let Councillor Cole go, and I'll speak after.
My only concern is we're going to go back to meetings that aren't filmed and made public, because that's what we did. And the only reason the meeting started to go public was because we're on Zoom. I did ask him, I wanted the stuff filmed and before, and it never was. I don't know what the reasoning was, but I think we need to keep that ball rolling. So if all of us showing up to the meeting means that it isn't filmed and put on YouTube, then I'll probably sit at home until we do that. Thanks.
Pete?
A couple of points worth mentioning. First, to address the live streaming. We do now have the technological availability to continue to do in Zoom like a hybrid, like we were doing at the beginning of the pandemic. Also, the new program that we've got for council agendas it also provides for a live streaming option, and the data is held in Canada. So the biggest issue that we were having before is, Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, is all of the data, the information is held in the US, and under the Freedom of Information Protection and Privacy Act, local governments, provincial governments, federal governments of Canada are not allowed to have any information that could be construed as private held outside the country. So that was the hiccup there. This iCompass program, the data is held in Canada, so we can start using that. I haven't been taught how to implement it on iCompass yet. I do believe that in the next 2 weeks, we're going to be taught on how to start doing the live streaming. And then the second part of that, for just in response to Councillor Cole, currently the community charter says a member of council or council committee who is unable to attend at a council meeting or council committee meeting as applicable may participate in the meeting by means of electronic or other communication facilities, which means as the community charter stands right now, unless you're out of the community, so on holidays, it's as per the community charter, you would need to be in person if that's made available. Now, however, having said that, there is, and you would have seen this in the letter from Josie Osborne, Minister Osborne, they are looking at changing legislation with the community charter with Bill 10, but currently it's only in third reading. They expect that it will come into fruition 90 days after I think it's the September 26th, the change to the public health orders. And their recommendation is that council considers reflecting on that bill as well as how we want to conduct business and amending a procedure bylaw to reflect that.
Thank you. Go ahead, Gabby.
My understanding also is that Minister Osborne's office is working on something to be able to assist us in the development of our procedural bylaw as well, to do with electronic meetings. So they're trying to capture the best of what was had. And then, of course, the worst was in some cases that it wasn't uploaded. And there are some communities where it wasn't made public, and community members are quite upset. I think we've done a very good job at keeping it as public as possible, entertaining questions. And so my understanding is they're going to help with that as well. But to the orders, I mean, the orders say that we can, we are able to meet. And so I would like to see us back in council chambers personally.
Councillor Farron?
I would like to be back in council chambers. I just think that the timing of the next meeting, I mean, my second shot is the 14th. While I feel a little bit differently about going into the community hall with 6 of us or 8 of us in the community hall, I don't think the next meeting would be the appropriate first one to have in chambers when the majority of the community is getting their second vaccinations the next day. So that would be my thought, was we look at hybriding until September, and then September we're actually back in the chambers together, all of us.
Any other thoughts? Go ahead.
Yeah, I probably wouldn't attend until I'm fully vaccinated. My appointment is for the 22nd. So I don't know how I ended up so far behind everybody else, but I did. So I think it would be appropriate to have a plan to get back in chambers. I don't think we can continually do that. And I think the issue of publicly hosting meetings is sort of a separate thing we need to deal with. But I think it's a great idea that we do that. It gets more public awareness of what council is doing, and there's nothing wrong with that. It's a good thing for us to have, is to keep because our minutes unfortunately don't really reflect much of what we talk about. And when they can go and look online and see what we actually spoke about and what we discussed, they'll realize that we are making decisions with a little more depth than what's recorded in the minutes, and that's important.
Okay.
That's my thoughts.
So hearing the conversation, it sounds like really August 10th would be the very earliest due to vaccine schedules, and there's the latest would be our council meeting on September 14th. So, do you need direction? Do we
I
need
might
to
make
come
a
to
follow-up.
consensus?
If I
Sure.
can do a follow-up comment, maybe that we can just have a quick discussion on our next cow in August, the first Tuesday, and just see where everybody's at, and then we can make it a definitive decision at that time.
And we should be, as Mayor Wickstrom indicated, we should be getting direction from the province probably within the next week.
Perfect. Okay. I just wanted to have the discussion because the public is going to start asking, when this is going to happen. And so thank you. It's just an opportunity to talk. Okay,
Brave question.
all of that, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So move.
Thank you.
Anne Marie had a question.
Did you have a question, Anne Marie?
No, I just said brave question to ask.
Oh,
I thought you said brief question.
Brave.
great. Okay. Okay, well, everybody enjoy your day. Take care. We'll talk later.
Shelley.
Bye.
Well, thanks.